my first video, and I'm really excited to share that I'm pregnant. I actually found out yesterday, and so I wanted to kind of make this video to talk a little bit more about our journey, how long we've been trying, the symptoms that I was having, and like, you know, what's next for us. Sorry, I'm like in the Starbucks line. But so we've been trying, this is for baby number 2 for us. So we have a daughter, her name is Mila, she's 16 months old, and we were always kind of hoping to have 2 kids that were about 2 years apart. So this kind of perfectly aligns for us timing wise, and I feel like we're lucky for that. We started trying in January, and we've been trying for a couple months. It's March now, so you know, it took us maybe 3 months, which isn't super long. We did kind of want to start trying a little bit earlier than January, but I didn't get my period back for a while postpartum, and even when I got it back, my periods were super irregular for a while, and I think most of it was because I was breastfeeding. So when I got my period back, it was about 9 months postpartum, and I had short luteal phases, irregular periods, like some periods or some cycles would be like 28 days long, others would be like 40 days long, and it was really difficult for me to be able to tell if I was even ovulating or when I was ovulating or any of that. So we decided we'll wait a little bit and start trying in January. And then at that time in January, my periods are more regular. I was using the ovulation test strips, the ones that you like pee on, to confirm that I was ovulating and that I was ovulating pretty consistently every month. So, you know, around that time of the month, we would have sex like every day, if possible. If we just weren't in the mood, it would be like every other day. And yeah, we just kind of did everything we needed to do. We tried Pre-Seed, which is a lube that it doesn't have like spermicide like a lot of the other lubes. It actually helps balance the pH in your vagina to make it easier for the sperm to get through. So it actually is kind of supposed to help you get pregnant. I have friends that kind of swear by it, like people I know that have used it, but we had never used it. This was the first time that we used it. We only used it like once or twice this cycle. I don't think we used it like every single time. So I can't say that it really helped, but I can't really say that it didn't, I guess. Other than that, we didn't really try anything different. I started tracking my basal body temperature just to kind of see, you know, just to know like after I ovulated, it's supposed to rise after you ovulate. So I started tracking it just so I could have a little bit more awareness of like what was going on with my body. I also used progesterone test strips, which are also the ones that you pee on, but it tests your progesterone. So after you ovulate, 7 days after ovulation, you do these test strips, and it tells you whether your progesterone levels are high enough, meaning that you ovulated successfully and the chances of conception are possible. So I did all the things, you know, trying to get all the data on what was going on. You know, I really wanted to have a baby, and I really just wanted all the information, because if it turned out that like we just weren't conceiving, and like I just wanted to know like if there was something I could be doing differently. But it seemed like it kind of worked out for us. I tested yesterday. I woke up at like 2 a.m, and I've been waking up at like really weird times. I think it's probably because of the pregnancy, but I woke up at 2 a.m. and I was actually feeling a little bit nauseous, and it was a little bit too soon in terms of like I hadn't missed my period yet, but I felt like I kind of had a feeling, just because I felt so nauseous and I hadn't been sleeping well. And I took a pregnancy test, and it was positive, but it was just one of those little like strip ones. So it was like a really faint line. So I went to Vaughn's like later that day, you know, at like a regular time, like 6 a.m. or something, when Vaughn's finally opened. And then I took another test, like a digital one, like a clear blue test, and it said pregnant. So that's my story. That's how I found out. I couldn't keep it a secret from my husband, Michael. So I ended up telling him right away. And yeah, that was literally just yesterday. It feels like it was forever ago, but it was just yesterday. I have some not so great news, although I'm still kind of trying to figure out exactly what is happening. So yesterday, which was like literally a day after I made my previous video where I was talking about my pregnancy and how excited we were, and then yesterday night, I had a little bit of bleeding down there. It was like red. I'm just going to describe it just because, you know, trying to paint the whole picture here. It was like red bleeding followed by some like brown spotting. And it wasn't like heavy or anything. It was just like a little bit of like brown discharge. And then I could see it kind of like when I wiped. And then later on, you know, when I peed, I thought I saw some like little brown clots, maybe tissue. I'm not really sure, because I don't know like what it's supposed to look like. But it definitely scared me. And in my whole first pregnancy, I never had any bleeding or any clotting or anything like that. So of course, the first thing I assumed was miscarriage. I had a little bit of lower back pain and a little bit of like abdominal cramping. But the bleeding actually never got worse. It just kind of stayed like light spotting, and a lot of times I wouldn't see anything at all. Like sometimes I would wipe and see a little bit of blood or a little bit of brown, but other times I wouldn't see anything, and it never got heavier. So I'm not really sure. Like I was kind of under the impression that for a miscarriage, the bleeding would get heavier, or that the pain would get worse. Like I thought, you know, it would be more obvious. So this morning, I came to urgent care. So that's where I am now. Went to urgent care and got a pelvic exam done. The doctor told me to go to the lab place, which is also in this medical complex, to get my HCG levels tested, because I did test positive for pregnancy, but she wants me to get my HCG levels tested today, and then test it again on Saturday and see if they are rising, because that would kind of indicate that the pregnancy is moving along. And I also have a transvaginal ultrasound that I'm gonna do in like 15 minutes. So I'm just kind of waiting right now for that appointment. I'm super nervous. I have been crying like on and off all morning, including earlier when I was at the doctor's office, because I just like sort of have this feeling that maybe this is the end, that maybe it wasn't a viable pregnancy, and it's so early for us. Like I'm only 4 weeks and 4 days or something right now. It's so early, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened, like if it was just like a chemical pregnancy. But it's still really, I don't know, it's weird. I still feel like if it is a miscarriage, I still feel like I'm like going through a loss, even though like I literally only knew I was pregnant for like 3 days. And I just got like excited and like was imagining, you know, our family, and I just really hope that like everything is going to be okay. All right, so bad news. I had a miscarriage, and they basically found out at the transvaginal ultrasound. I was lying there, and I asked the, I guess, ultrasound tech person, you know, if she could tell me like what was going on, because I don't think she's really supposed to. I think the doctor is supposed to call me about it afterwards. But she did tell me that like she didn't see the gestational sac. And she said that at like 4 and something weeks, you should be able to see it. It wasn't like, at that point I kind of knew like, okay, it was probably a miscarriage, but I wasn't 100% sure, because I know that I ovulate late, like about a week late. So I could technically be more like 3 and something weeks, which means it could be like too early to see the gestational sac. So yeah, I kind of had hope with that, but then I came home and I took an HCG test and it was fading a little bit. So then I was like, oh, I think it was a miscarriage. And then shortly after, the doctor from the urgent care place called me and said she confirmed it was a miscarriage. I don't think it was just that she couldn't see the gestational sac. I think there was probably also some like remains in there, like in the fluid. At least that was like my impression, because she seemed pretty confident that it was in fact like a miscarriage. I've been having a really rough day. I came home and like, unfortunately my husband, usually he's working from home. Today he went to the office, so I was by myself. So I laid on the couch for a couple hours. I got myself like an ice cream sandwich. I just kind of like, I didn't even bother to go back to work or anything. I just kind of like gave myself the day, the time, and it just kind of flew by. So now I'm on my way to go pick up Mila. Sucks. I'm really sad about it. I really do feel like I'm grieving, like, and it's, you know, the logical side of me, which like Michael is so logical, you know, so he would probably say like this literally only was in the span of like a couple of days. And, you know, while I feel very attached to this baby, it would have been so much harder if I had, you know, been carrying a baby for like 9 weeks or like into my second trimester. And I know that that does happen to people, and I'm sure it's a lot harder. So I really do sympathize with people that that happens to. But I don't know, it's like, even though it was such a short amount of time, I still kind of feel like I'm responsible in some way, even when people say like it's not my fault. Yeah, I mean, I texted some of my friends, two of my friends, my close friends, I texted about it just because I felt like I needed to kind of get it off my chest, and both of them made me feel a lot better. Because it's hard, you know, and like, it's harder going through this when like nobody really knew that you were pregnant, or nobody really knew that you were trying, because we haven't really been super open and honest about it with that many people. So I just kind of needed to be able to like talk about it with somebody and to be able to process it, because it's hard. And I think that no matter how much I don't want to let it affect future pregnancies and like us continuing to try for a baby, I feel like ultimately it kind of will. You know, if we get pregnant again, I'm always going to be thinking there's going to be another miscarriage, even though the doctor has told me that like my ovaries look fine and that this probably wouldn't affect me in the future. But it's hard to not think of it that way. Say bye. Say bye. No bye? So that's it. Taking Mila home and just sort of feeling grateful and appreciative for the one healthy child that we have, and just sort of hoping that number 2 will come soon for us. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry, I get distracted easily. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.